Unlock your potential today at skillbakery.com.
Today we'll explore how to manage authentication efficiently using Redux, securely handle tokens, and persist the authentication state. For persisting the authentication state, we'll be making use of Redux Persist. In order to install Redux Persist, we need to write this command npm install redux-persist. Press enter. Redux Persist basically helps persist Redux state even after page refresh. Now that we have installed Redux Persist, let's go ahead with step-by-step implementation to implement authentication in our application. The first thing that we need to do is create a file called auth-slice.js. So here, inside our store directory, we'll be creating a new file. We'll be calling it as auth-slice.js. And inside the auth-slice.js file, we notice over here, we are creating a slice and it's having initial state, user, token, and is authenticated. We have reducers for login and logout. And here we have extracted out the actions, login success, and logout. For login, as of now, we are using this fake API login route, but we'll be changing this with request response.in, which provides us the authentication. So here, let's go ahead and first of all update that. So we now have a proper login API call. Rest of the stuff in this method will remain as is. So here we have our login. Now let's save this and we're done with our auth-slice.js. So here, whatever data is being returned, we are storing it inside the data and we are dispatching the login success and we are passing user and token. And finally, we are exporting our auth-slice.reducer. Now this auth-slice needs to be imported in our store.js file. Let's go to our store.js file now. Over here, we'll be including two things. First is the Redux Persist. So that we will be doing over here. And the next thing is to import storage, again from Redux Persist. And after that, we'll also be importing auth-reducer. And that is going to be from the auth-slice file that we have created. So here we have our store, auth-slice, auth-reducer. And we already have our to-do reducer from to-do slice. We will be creating our persist config object over here with the key auth and the storage passed over here. And then we'll have our persisted auth reducer, which will make use of persist reducer. And here we'll say persist config. This is the object that we have created. And we're passing auth reducer from auth slice. We'll then make use of this auth reducer over here in our reducer. So we have our auth persist auth reducer. And finally, we'll be exporting our persist. So here we are exporting our persister. Let's save this. So now both authentication and to-dos will be managed in Redux itself. Now let's go ahead and open up to-do list.js file. Over here, we'll be making use of is authenticated. So here we have our is authenticated and we are making use of use selector. And here we are saying if state.auth.is authenticated. Based on that, we'll either have a true or false value. And we'll make use of use effect accordingly. So here, we'll update this with use effect. So now if the user is authenticated, we are fetching the to-dos, otherwise we are not. So here we have dispatch and is authenticated as dependency for use effect. And finally, we'll be checking over here if the user is authenticated, then fine. Otherwise, it will simply return this message, please log in to view your to-dos. And rest of the stuff remains exactly as is. Let's save this. Now we also need to have our login.js page created. And that we can do inside our components directory. So let's go inside components. And here we'll have our login.js. And let's also create logout.js. So inside the components directory, we'll create another file, logout.js. Now in our logout.js file, if you notice, we are importing React user state, use dispatch from React Redux, and login from the auth-slice. Over here, we are setting the initial credentials as empty so that user can provide those values. And here we have our dispatch. On clicking on handle submit, we are dispatching this login method. And if you notice in our auth slice, when the user will be calling the login method, we will be basically sending it over here and we'll be getting the response from there. Now we have the usual form where user will provide their email and password and then click on the submit button. So that's pretty much it with our login.js. And let's also create the logout.js page. So here we'll open up our logout.js page, and over here we'll again be importing React use dispatch and logout from auth slice. And over here, when we click on logout, we are calling this logout method, and using the dispatch logout, we are simply removing the token that's stored in the local storage. And here we're calling the logout method. If you notice in our auth slice, we have this logout reducer, and it basically does the same, apart from setting the user token and is authenticated to false. Let's save this and save this file as well. Let's go ahead and run this application. Similarly, we now have to open up our app.js file, and over here also we'll be importing the components that we have created for login and logout. We can simply go ahead and import these login and logout from the components directory. Once that's done, we can here also make use of is authenticated to identify whether the user has logged in or not. So here we have our is authenticated, and we will make use of is authenticated to accordingly display login or logout buttons. So here, let's go ahead. After the Redux to-do list, we'll incorporate this logout or login. Let's save this and execute our application now. And over here, you can see that we are now getting this email, password, and login option coming up. But we also get this as to do and all the filter functionality. But we still see that this please log in to view your to-dos is preventing the existing to-dos from getting displayed. So what we need to do is just make few more tweaks over here in our app.js file. Over here, you can see that we have moved the text, which should have been displayed when the user was logged in. And here we have our Redux to-do list with the login option coming up. Let's go ahead and try it with some dummy login credentials. We'll enter email address and let's enter a password over here. Click on login, and there you go. So now you can see that our authentication was successful, and we are getting the Redux to-do list completely coming up over here. So we have the option to add a new to-do list, and the existing ones from the API is also getting shown, and all these functionality that we have is working fine. So that's how easy it is to incorporate authentication in our existing React application using Redux. If you find the video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe.